The council chamber floated in the void between stars. It was a massive structure, built by 100 different species over thousands of years. Ships came and went like insects around a hive, bringing delegates from every corner of the galaxy. Inside the Great Hall, beings of every shape and size gathered to discuss the business of their worlds. Tae-young stood near the back of the chamber, watching the proceedings with tired eyes. He was young for an ambassador, barely 40 cycles old. His blue skin marked him as Crithian, one of the older species in the galactic community. His people had been exploring space for nearly 10,000 years. They had seen much. They had learned much, but there were still mysteries. The current debate was about trade routes. A merchant guild wanted to establish a new hyperspace lane that would cut travel time between the outer colonies by half. It was a good proposal. And there was. 8 It would make everyone richer. But there was a problem. The proposed route came close to the silent zone. Tae-young watched as the merchant representative, a tall creature with 6 arms, pointed to a holographic map floating in the center of the chamber. The new route was marked in bright green. It curved around a large, empty space in the map. That empty space was marked in red. The route never enters the forbidden region, the merchant said. It only passes within 5 light-years of the boundary. This is well within safety margins. An old delegate stood up. Tae-young recognized him as Elder Vomus, one of the longest-lived beings in the galaxy. Vomus had been alive for over 3,000 years. His species aged slowly, and memory was their gift. 5 light-years is not enough, Vomus said. His voice was quiet but firm. The minimum safe distance is 50 light-years. Everyone knows this. The merchant's frustration was clear. That is an outdated regulation based on old superstitions. No one has disappeared near the boundary in over 200 years. Because no one has been foolish enough to go near it, Vomus replied. Tae-young felt his curiosity stir. He had heard about the Silent Zone all his life. Every species knew about it. A huge sphere of space, 500 light-years across, that no one entered. The region contained hundreds of star systems, thousands of planets, and resources beyond measure. But it was forbidden. Why? No one could give him a good answer. The official records simply said it was dangerous. Old stories spoke of ships that vanished, of crews that went mad, of things that should not be seen, but there were no details, no evidence, just fear. After the council session ended, Tae-young approached Elder Vomus. The old being was gathering his things, moving slowly as age demanded. Elder, may I ask you something? Vomus looked at him with eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. You want to know about the humans. Tae-young blinked in surprise. How did you know? Because I see that look in young eyes every few centuries. Curiosity is not a sin, young Tae-young. But some curiosities can be dangerous. I have searched the archives, Tae-young said. The records about humans are incomplete. Large sections are missing or sealed. Why? Tae-young. Vomus was quiet for a long moment. Then he gestured for Tae-young to follow him. They walked through the empty corridors of the station until they reached an observation deck. Through the transparent walls, they could see the galaxy spread out before them like scattered jewels. I met a human once, Vomus said finally. I was young then, barely 200 years old. They were traders, explorers, much like any other species. They were curious and clever. They laughed easily. They made friends. What happened to them? They left, Vomus said. Not all at once. It took about 50 years. First, their merchant ships stopped coming to our ports. Then their embassies closed. Then their colonies went silent. Finally, they sent one last message to the council. It said they were choosing isolation for reasons they could not explain. They asked us not to follow them. They asked us to forget them. But why would an entire species just disappear? That is the question every generation asks, Vomas said. Many theories exist. Some say they found something in deep space that changed them. Others say they started a war they could not win. Some even believe they transcended to another plane of existence. But the truth is, we do not know. Tae-young stared out at the stars. Somewhere in that vast darkness was the silent zone, and somewhere in that zone were the humans. What if we just asked them? Tae-young said. What if we sent a message? We have tried, Vomas said sadly. Every few decades, someone sends a probe or a signal into that space. Nothing ever comes back. Not even a refusal. Just silence. That night, Tae-young could not sleep. He sat in his quarters, scrolling through what little information existed about humans. There were images, old and grainy, showing beings that looked remarkably similar to several other species. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. They were not special to look at, but there was something in their eyes. Even in the old photographs, Tae-young could see it. A kind of intensity, a determination. He found a video file, one of the last recordings of a human before the isolation. It was a speech given by someone named Hyun-soo, a scientist. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. We have discovered something, Hyun-soo said. Something that changes everything we thought we knew about the universe. We cannot share this knowledge. We cannot allow others to find what we have found. The cost is too high. We are leaving, not because we want to, but because we must. Please, do not follow us. Please, do not try to find us. What we carry now is not meant for any living species. The video ended there. Tae-young watched it 3 more times, trying to understand. 3 days later, something happened that changed everything. A distress beacon was detected at the edge of the silent zone. A ship had been found drifting in space. When the rescue teams arrived, they found all crew members dead. Their faces were frozen in expressions of pure terror. The ship's logs were corrupted, except for one message that repeated over and over. They know. They've always known. Turn back. For the love of all life, turn back. The council convened in emergency session. The debate was fierce. Some wanted to destroy the ship and forbid anyone from speaking of it. Others wanted to investigate further. The merchant guilds saw opportunity. The military factions saw threat. Tae-young stood in the gallery, watching and listening. And in his heart, a decision was forming. He would find the truth. He would go to the silent zone. He would discover what happened to humanity, even if it killed him. The stars kept their secrets well. But Tae-young was determined to make them talk. The silent zone had been silent for long enough. It was time for answers. He just hoped he would like what he found. Finding a crew willing to enter the silent zone was harder than Tae-young expected. Most people treated him like he was insane. Some laughed. Others became angry. A few simply walked away without saying a word. But eventually, he found them. People who were curious enough, or desperate enough, to risk everything. Bo Young was the first to volunteer. She was a scientist, an astrophysicist who had spent her entire life studying space anomalies. She was tall and thin, with the kind of intense focus that made others uncomfortable. When Tae-young explained his plan, she did not hesitate. "I have been waiting for someone to do this," she said. "All my life, I have looked at that empty space on our star maps and wondered. Science should not fear the unknown. It should embrace it." Sung-ho was different. He was a security officer, a military veteran who had seen combat in 3 different wars. He was built strong and moved with the careful awareness of someone who expected danger. When Tae-young asked him why he wanted to join, Sung-ho's answer was simple. "My grandfather left me his journals. In them, he wrote warnings about humans. He said his grandfather told him stories about the human question. I want to know what they were afraid of. I want to know if I should be afraid too." Na Young was a medical officer, skilled in xenobiology and trauma treatment. She had worked in frontier hospitals where species from across the galaxy came for help. She had seen every kind of biology imaginable. Her reason for joining was practical. If we encounter humans, we need to understand their physiology. I have studied the old medical records. Human biology is fascinating. They heal quickly, adapt easily, and have incredible endurance. I want to see if those records are accurate. With his core crew assembled, Tae Young managed to acquire a ship. It was not new or fancy, but it was reliable. The vessel was called the Morning Star, a medium-sized exploration ship with good engines and better sensors. It would have to be enough. The night before departure, the Galactic Council sent Tae Young a formal message. They could not stop him legally, but they made their position clear. If he entered the Silent Zone, he did so against their advice. No rescue would come. No support would be provided. He would be on his own. Tae Young accepted the terms. The journey to the boundary took 12 days. The ship traveled through normal hyperspace lanes, passing trade stations and colonies. Life continued as normal for everyone else. But with each passing day, Tae Young felt the weight of what they were doing grow heavier. Bo Young spent most of her time studying sensor readings. As they approached the boundary, she began noticing irregularities. "Look at this," she said, showing Tae Young a display screen. "Space-time readings are fluctuating. It is subtle, but it is there. Something is affecting the fabric of space itself. Is it dangerous?" Tae Young asked. "I do not know," Bo Young admitted. "I have never seen readings like this before." On the 10th day, Sung-ho reported something strange. The ship's navigation computer had displayed an error message. The message was written in human language. "How is that possible?" Na Young asked. "The computer should not have human language files. That language has not been used in 800 years. Check the system logs," Tae Young ordered. Bo Young ran a diagnostic. She found nothing wrong with the computer. No viruses, no corrupted files, no outside interference. The message had simply appeared, as if the computer had remembered something it should not know. The message itself was simple, but unsettling. "Warning. Proceed with caution." As they crossed into the region marked as the Silent Zone boundary, everyone felt it. A change in the air. A pressure that was not quite physical. It was as if the universe itself was holding its breath. "Sensors are going wild," Bo Young reported. Her voice was tense, but excited. "I am detecting gravitational waves, quantum fluctuations, and something else. Something I cannot identify." "Can we continue safely?" Tae Young asked. "I think so, but I cannot guarantee anything." They pressed on. For 3 days, they traveled deeper into the Silent Zone. They passed star systems marked on ancient maps as human colonies. The planets were still there, orbiting their suns, but no signals came from them. No lights, no activity. Sung-ho suggested they investigate one of the colonies. Tae Young agreed. They landed on a planet that records identified as New Seoul, once home to 3 million humans. The city was intact. Buildings stood tall and undamaged. Streets were clean, but there were no people. The crew explored carefully. Weapons ready. Sensors scanning. They found homes with furniture still in place. Restaurants with food preserved in stasis fields. Schools with lessons still written on boards. It was as if everyone had simply stopped what they were doing and left. But there were no bodies. No signs of struggle or disaster. Just absence. "This is wrong," Sung-ho said. His hand rested on his weapon. "People do not just disappear like this. Something made them leave." Na Young found a medical facility. Inside, she discovered records that made her hands shake as she read them. "These files," she said slowly, "describe medical procedures I do not understand. Treatments for conditions that should not exist. References to changes in human biology that make no sense." "What kind of changes?" Tae Young asked. neural rewiring, perception enhancement, dimensional awareness. These words mean nothing to me, but the humans seemed to think they were important. They left the planet with more questions than answers. 4 days later, they detected a signal. It was faint, but steady, coming from deeper in the silent zone. The signal used old galactic standard frequencies, the kind used for automated systems. It is a way station, Bo Young said after analyzing the signal. Human design, but old, at least 700 years old. They found the way station orbiting a dead star. It was a small structure, barely large enough for a crew of 10. But its power systems were still active, and its computers were still running. When they docked, the airlock opened automatically. The interior was clean and well maintained, as if someone had just left. In the control room, they found an active terminal. Tae Young approached it carefully. The screen lit up as he came near, displaying text in galactic standard. Welcome, travelers. If you are reading this, you have ignored every warning. You have come far into a place you should not be. I am required to tell you the truth, or as much of it as you can understand. The message continued. It explained that the way station was one of several placed at the boundary. They were maintained by automated systems that had run for centuries. Their purpose was simple: to warn outsiders one final time before they went too far. We are still here. The message read. We did not die. We did not flee to another galaxy. We chose isolation for a reason. What we discovered, what we learned, what we became, it is not for others. The knowledge we carry is dangerous. Not because it is evil, but because it changes those who learn it. Tae Young read the words aloud for his crew. Everyone listened in silence. We made a choice. The message continued. We chose to protect you by staying away. Please respect that choice. Turn back. Return to your lives. Forget about us. At the bottom of the message was a set of coordinates and a name. Daehyun. Last Keeper. Haven Station. What do we do? Na Young asked. Tae Young looked at his crew. Bo Young's eyes were bright with determination. Sung Ho's face was unreadable, but he had not suggested retreat. Na Young looked scared, but curious. We have come this far, Tae Young said. We have seen empty cities and read cryptic warnings, but we still do not have real answers. I am going to those coordinates. Anyone who wants to turn back can take the shuttle. I will not think less of you. No one moved toward the shuttle. Then we continue. As they left the way station, none of them noticed the small detail that would have terrified them. The message on the terminal updated with new text. 4 more, come. He will be waiting. The morning star accelerated deeper into the silent zone, carrying 4 souls toward a truth that would change them forever. Behind them, the rest of the galaxy continued in blissful ignorance. Ahead of them, something ancient and patient watched their approach. The deeper they traveled into the silent zone, the stranger things became. Bo Young's instruments showed readings that should not exist. Space itself seemed to bend in unusual ways. Light moved differently. Time felt wrong, though the clocks showed normal progression. I am detecting quantum irregularities, Bo Young said during their morning briefing. The fabric of reality here is not stable. It is as if something is constantly observing it, changing it. Is it dangerous? Sung Ho asked. I do not know. Maybe, maybe not. But it is definitely not natural. On the 6th day after leaving the way station, they found another abandoned colony. This one was different. The buildings were newer, and there were signs that people had lived here more recently, perhaps only 500 years ago instead of 800. Tae Young led an exploration team down to the surface. They wore environmental suits, though the atmosphere was breathable. Better safe than sorry. This colony had a name. Last Light Station. It was smaller than New Seoul, built for maybe 50,000 people. Like the previous colony, it was empty, but intact. Na Young discovered something in what appeared to be a research facility. It was a computer terminal, still active, still recording data. But the data made no sense. It showed biological readings for human subjects, but the numbers were impossible. "Look at this," Na Young said, her voice shaking. "This shows a human heart beating at 200 times per minute, sustained, for days. No human heart should survive that. And look here. Brain activity readings that are 10 times higher than normal. Some of these subjects show neural patterns that extend beyond their physical brains." "What does that mean?" Tae-young asked. "I do not know. It is as if their consciousness was existing in more space than their brains could contain." Sung-ho found something else. In a locked room deep in the facility, he discovered storage units containing personal logs. These were not official records. They were private journals left by humans who had lived here. One journal belonged to someone named Jin Sol. The entries were dated over a period of 20 years, showing her transformation from a normal colonist to something else. Tae-young read the entries aloud to his crew. Year 1. "We have begun the process. Dr. Hyun-soo says it will take time, but we will adapt. The pattern requires us to change. I am scared, but I trust the decision our leaders made. Year 5. I can see things now. Things that were always there, but invisible. Dimensions folded into our three-dimensional space. I can reach out and touch them. It is beautiful and terrifying. Year 10. I barely sleep anymore. I do not need to. My body has changed. I heal faster. I think faster. But I am losing something too. The simple joys feel distant. Music sounds flat. Food tastes like ash. Only the work matters now. Only the watching." Year 15. We received word today. The outer colonies are being evacuated. Everyone must come to the core systems. We are establishing a perimeter. The things in the dark are getting closer. We can hold them back, but only if we all work together. Year 20. This is my last entry. Tomorrow, I will fully join the collective consciousness. I will add my strength to the others. We stand guard, not because we want to, but because we must. If anyone ever reads this, know that we made this choice willingly. We gave up our humanity to save yours. Do not mourn us. Do not seek us. Just live. That is enough." The crew sat in silence after Tae-young finished reading. The implications were overwhelming. "They found something," Bo-young said finally. "This pattern they mention. It changed them. Made them into something else. But changed them into what?" Sung-ho asked. "And what are they holding back?" Before anyone could answer, the ship's alarm sounded. They rushed back to the Morning Star. Bo-young ran to the sensor station. "Something is approaching," she said. "It is not a ship. It is not a natural phenomenon. It is something else." On the view screen, they saw it. A shape that hurt to look at. It existed in 3 dimensions, but also seemed to extend into spaces their eyes could not follow. It was dark, but it also glowed. It was massive, but also seemed to fit in a small space. "What is that?" Na Young whispered. The shape moved toward their ship. Slowly, deliberately. And as it came closer, they all felt something. A presence, an intelligence, ancient and hungry. Then, suddenly, the shape stopped. It hovered in space, just a few kilometers from their ship. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the shape shattered. It broke apart into millions of pieces that dissolved into nothing. One moment, it was there, and the next, it was gone. "What just happened?" Sung-ho demanded. Bo-young checked her instruments frantically. "I do not know. Something destroyed it. Something we cannot detect." A new signal appeared on their communication system. It was a voice, speaking in perfect galactic standard. The voice sounded human, but there was something wrong about it. It echoed, as if multiple people were speaking at once. "You are safe. Continue to Haven Station. Daehyun waits for you. Do not fear the Watchers. They cannot harm you while we are here. The signal ended before Tae-young could respond. Who was that? Na-young asked. The humans. Tae-young said quietly. They are still here, and they are protecting us. The next 3 days passed without incident, but the crew remained on edge. They saw more of the strange shapes in the distance, but none came close. It was as if something was keeping them away. Bo-young spent those days studying the data from Jin Sol's journal and the research facility. She began to form a theory. I think I understand what happened, she said. The pattern they mention is some kind of signal or code embedded in the universe itself. The humans discovered it and decoded it, but decoding it changed them. It gave them abilities, but it also made them aware of things that exist beyond normal space. What kind of things? Tae-young asked. Those shapes we saw. I think they are entities that exist in dimensions we cannot normally perceive. They feed on consciousness, on thinking beings. The humans can see them and fight them. That is why they isolated themselves. Contact with humans makes other species start to perceive these entities too. So they are protecting us, Sung-ho said, by staying away. Yes. But more than that. They are fighting a war we cannot even see. Every human, transformed by the pattern, is a soldier holding back the darkness. On the 10th day after entering the silent zone, they reached their destination. Haven Station appeared on their sensors. It was enormous, larger than any structure Tae-young had ever seen. It floated in space around a star that burned with strange colors. The station itself was beautiful and wrong. Its architecture followed no known design principles. It had towers that curved impossibly, surfaces that seemed to reflect light that was not there, and a presence that could be felt even through the ship's hull. I am reading millions of life signs, Na-young said, her voice barely above a whisper. All human. As they approached, a docking bay opened. A guide beam caught their ship and pulled them gently inside. They had no choice but to follow. The docking bay was clean and empty. When they stepped out of their ship, the air smelled strange, like ozone and something else. Something that made their skin tingle. A figure was waiting for them. He looked human, standing on 2 legs with 2 arms and 1 head. He was dressed simply in dark clothing, but when Tae-young looked at him, really looked at him, he saw more. The figure seemed to exist in more than one place at once. Shadows moved around him that had no source. Welcome to Haven Station, the figure said. His voice was calm and sad. My name is Daehyun. I am the last keeper. I volunteered to remain partially human so I could speak with you. I am sorry it has taken so long for someone to come. I have been waiting for 847 years. Tae-young found his voice. We came for answers. I know, Daehyun said, and I will give them to you. But first, you must understand something. The answers will change you. Once you know the full truth, you cannot unknow it. The universe will never look the same. We came this far, Bo-young said firmly. We need to know. We need to know, Daehyun nodded slowly. Then come. Let me show you what humanity has become. Let me show you what we fight. And let me show you why we can never go home. They followed him deeper into the station, toward the heart of the mystery. Behind them, their ship sat alone in the docking bay, and around them, millions of transformed humans continued their endless vigil against the dark. Daehyun led them through corridors that made their eyes hurt. The walls were not quite solid. They seemed to shift when not directly observed. Colors existed that had no names. Sounds came from directions that should not exist. What you are feeling is normal, Daehyun said, his voice echoing strangely. Your minds are trying to process dimensions they were never designed to perceive. It will pass, or you will adapt. One or the other. Daehyun. Daehyun. They entered a large chamber. The ceiling stretched up impossibly high, disappearing into darkness. In the center of the room stood a pillar of light that was not quite light. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. "This is a representation," Daehyun explained. "Your minds cannot perceive the pattern directly without being changed. So we have created this. A translation. A shadow of the truth." Tae-young stared at the pillar. Even this reduced version made his head ache. "What is the pattern?" Daehyun was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. 900 years ago, one of our deep space probes detected something strange. A signal embedded in the cosmic background radiation. It was not random noise. It was structured, deliberate. Someone, or something, had written a message into the fabric of the universe itself. He gestured at the pillar. "Our scientists worked for decades to decode it. Dr. Hyun-soo was the first to succeed, and what she found changed everything." "What was the message?" Bo-young asked, leaning forward despite her fear. "The message was the universe itself," Daehyun said. "The pattern is a code that describes reality. It is the operating system of existence, and it is alive, or conscious. The distinction becomes meaningless at that level." Na-young shook her head. "That is impossible. The universe is not alive." "The universe is not alive in the way you understand life," Daehyun agreed. "But it is observed, and observation creates reality. The pattern is both the observer and the observed. It is the question and the answer." Sung-ho's hand rested on his weapon, though he knew it was useless here. "What happened when you decoded it?" We learned," Daehyun said simply. "Once you fully understand the pattern, you cannot help but change. Your consciousness expands. You begin to perceive more dimensions, more possibilities, more threats." He turned away from the pillar, facing them directly. "We learned that reality is thin. Behind our three-dimensional space, there are other dimensions, other spaces, and in those spaces, things exist. Ancient things, hungry things. They have been there since before stars formed, waiting and watching." "The shapes we saw," Tae-young said. "The things that tried to approach our ship. Yes. We call them the Hollow Ones. They exist in the spaces between dimensions. They feed on consciousness, on thought, on awareness. For most species, they are invisible, undetectable. You live your entire existence never knowing they are there, feeding on the edges of your thoughts." The implications made Tae-young's stomach turn. "Are you saying they have been feeding on us? On all of us? This entire time?" "Yes. But only a little. Only the scraps. Like parasites taking just enough to survive without killing the host. But if they could, they would consume everything. Every conscious thought in the galaxy would be devoured." "Why do they not?" Bo-young asked. Daehyun smiled, but it was not a happy expression. "Because we stopped them. Once humans decoded the pattern, we could see the Hollow Ones. We could fight them, and we learned we had no choice but to do so." He gestured around the chamber. "Every human alive has been transformed. We connect to the pattern now. We exist partially in those higher dimensions, and we use that existence to hold back the Hollow Ones. Every day, every hour, every moment. We fight a war that the rest of the galaxy cannot even perceive." "That is why you isolated yourselves," Na-young said, understanding dawning. "Contact with you would make us see them too." "Exactly. Proximity to transformed humans causes other species to begin perceiving the pattern. Slowly at first, but it builds. And once you start to see the Hollow Ones, they can see you back. They can target you directly. We isolated ourselves to prevent that from happening." Sung-ho looked at Daehyun with new respect. "You have been fighting alone for 9 centuries. 1. If we are not alone," Daehyun said quietly. We have each other. And we have purpose. We gave up our old lives, our old joys, our old humanity. But we gained something else. We became protectors, guardians. We stand watch so that others can sleep safely. He led them to another chamber. This one had windows that looked out into space. But the space they showed was not normal space. Tae-young could see the stars. But he could also see something else. Layers upon layers of reality stacked on top of each other. And between those layers, things moved. The hollow ones were everywhere. Thousands of them. Millions. Perhaps. They pressed against reality like prisoners against bars, trying to break through, and standing against them were the humans. Tae-young could not see them clearly, but he could feel their presence. Millions of consciousness linked together, forming a wall of light and thought that held back the darkness. This is what we do, Daehyun said. Every moment of every day. We are the barrier between your reality and theirs. How did you survive this for so long? Na-young asked. How do you maintain your sanity? We do not completely, Daehyun admitted. Being connected to the pattern changes you, makes you less human and more something else. Most of us have joined the collective consciousness. We exist as a unified mind, sharing thoughts and experiences. It is the only way to maintain the defense. But you did not join, Tae-young observed. I volunteered to remain separate, partially human. Someone needed to be able to speak with outsiders, if they ever came. Someone needed to remember what it was like to be just one person, alone in their own head. Dae-hyun's voice was filled with old pain. It has been the longest 800 years of my life. Quote. Bo-young stepped closer to the window, staring out at the impossible sight. What would happen if you stopped? If humanity just let go? The hollow ones would break through within hours, Daehyun said. They would sweep across the galaxy like a plague. Every conscious being would feel them. At first, it would be like a bad dream you cannot wake from. Then madness. Then they would begin feeding properly. Within a year, most species would be extinct. Within a decade, the galaxy would be empty of all complex thought. The chamber fell silent. The weight of what they had learned pressed down on all of them. Does the council know? Tae-young asked finally. Do they know what you do? Some of the oldest members suspect, Daehyun said. Elder Vomas, for example. He remembers when we were still normal. He saw the change begin. But we never told them directly. What good would it do? They cannot help us. They can only fear us. That is not fair to them, Sung-ho said. They should know what you sacrifice. Perhaps, Daehyun agreed. But knowledge has a price. And sometimes, ignorance is a kindness. He turned to face them fully. I have shown you the truth. Now you must make a choice. You can return to your ship and go home. I will seal your memories of what you saw here. You will remember the journey but not the details. You will know that humans are still here, and that we chose isolation, but not why. You can return to your normal lives. Or, Tae-young asked, or you can learn the pattern. You can join us. You can add your consciousness to the defense. But if you make that choice, there is no going back. You will change. You will become something more than you are now. But you will also never be able to return to your old lives. Why would you want us? Bo-young asked. We are not human. The pattern does not care about species, Daehyun said. It cares about consciousness, about awareness. Any sufficiently complex mind can learn to perceive it. We have never asked others to join us because we wanted to protect them. But if you volunteer, if you understand the cost and choose this anyway, then we would welcome you. How long do we have to decide? Na-young asked. Take the night. Daehyun said. Rest. Think. Discuss among yourselves. Tomorrow, you will give me your answers. He left them alone in the chamber. The 4 crew members stood in silence, looking out at a war that should not exist, fought by an enemy that could not be named, for a cause that no one would ever know about. Tae-young realized then the true meaning of sacrifice. Humanity had not disappeared. They had not fled or transcended. They had simply chosen to bear a burden too terrible for anyone else to carry. They did not sleep that night. How could they? The 4 crew members sat in the chamber Dae-hyun had given them, talking in quiet voices about impossible choices. "I'm going to stay," Bo-young said. She had been quiet for hours, but her decision was firm. "This is the greatest scientific discovery in history. The pattern explains everything, reality itself. How can I walk away from that?" 1. "You heard what he said," Na-young argued. "You will not be yourself anymore. You will lose your individuality." 2. "I will lose my isolation," Bo-young corrected. "But I will gain connection to something greater. Every scientist dreams of understanding the universe. This is that dream made real." Sung-ho leaned against the wall, his expression troubled. "My ancestors were right to fear humans, but they feared them for the wrong reasons. Humans are not dangerous because they are violent or aggressive. They are dangerous because they know the truth. They see what is really out there." End quote. "They one side." End quote. "On pardon, will you stay?" Tae-young asked him. Sung-ho nodded slowly. "I am a soldier. I have spent my life fighting battles that most people never hear about, protecting people who never know they are in danger. This is the same, just on a larger scale. If there is a war being fought, then that is where I belong." Na-young wrapped her arms around herself. "I am terrified," she admitted. "Everything I thought I knew about the universe is wrong. But I also cannot stop thinking about what happens if they fail. If the humans ever lose this fight, everyone I know, everyone I love, would suffer a fate worse than death." "So you will stay too?" Tae-young asked gently. "Yes," Na-young whispered. "I do not want to, but I have to. I am a healer. How can I return home knowing I could have helped stop a plague that would destroy everyone?" Tae-young looked at his 3 companions, 3 people who had trusted him enough to follow him into the unknown. Now they were all choosing to sacrifice themselves for a cause the galaxy would never know about. "What about you?" Bo-young asked. "What will you choose?" Tae-young had been wrestling with that question all night. Part of him wanted to stay, wanted to help, wanted to join this invisible war against the darkness. But another part of him knew that someone needed to return. Someone needed to tell the galaxy the truth, or at least part of it. "I am going back," he said finally. "Someone needs to tell the council what we found. They need to know that humanity is still here, that they are not a threat, and they need to know to stay away, not out of fear, but out of respect." His crew nodded, understanding. No one argued with his choice. The next morning, they gathered before Dae-hyun. The last keeper looked at each of them in turn, reading their decisions in their faces. "You have chosen," he said. "It was not a question. 3 of us will stay," Tae-young said. Bo-young, Sung-ho, and Na-young have volunteered to learn the pattern. I will return to the council." Dae-hyun nodded. "I expected something like this. Tae-young, before you go, I must give you something. A gift and a burden." He reached out and touched Tae-young's forehead. For a moment, Tae-young felt a presence in his mind. Not invasive, but careful. Dae-hyun was placing something there. A memory, sealed and protected. "What is this?" Tae-young asked. "Everything we discussed. Everything you saw. I have placed it in a protected part of your mind. You will remember that we talked, but not the specific details. The memories will feel distant, dreamlike. But if you present yourself before the Galactic Council in full session and speak the activation phrase, 'I have given you,' the seal will break. The full memories will return, and everyone present will be able to view them through a shared experience. Why seal them? Tae-young asked. Because the truth is dangerous, Dae-hyun said. If you remembered everything clearly during your journey home, the hollow ones might sense it. They might target you. This way, you carry the truth, but you do not fully hold it until you reach safety. Dae-hyun turned to the other three. Are you ready? They exchanged glances. Bo-young squared her shoulders. Sung-ho touched his weapon one last time, then let his hand fall. Na-young took a deep breath. We are ready, Bo-young said. Then follow me. Tae-young watched as his crew followed Dae-hyun into another chamber. The door closed behind them. He stood alone, feeling a profound sense of loss. He had known these people for only a few weeks, but they had become friends. Now he would never see them again, not as they were. Hours later, the door opened. 3 figures emerged. They looked like Bo-young, Sung-ho, and Na-young. Same faces, same bodies, but their eyes were different. They held a depth that had not been there before. A knowing. It is done. The figure that had been Bo-young said. Her voice had a slight echo to it now, as if multiple people spoke together. We can perceive it now. The pattern, the dimensions, the hollow ones. And we can fight. Do you regret it? Tae-young asked. The 3 transformed beings looked at each other, communicating in ways Tae-young could not perceive. Then, Na-young spoke. No. We are not what we were, but we are more than we were. And we are doing something that matters. That is enough. Sung-ho stepped forward and placed a hand on Tae-young's shoulder. The touch was warm and real. Thank you for bringing us here. Thank you for giving us the chance to be part of something greater than ourselves. Tae-young felt tears on his face. I will tell them. I will make sure the galaxy knows to honor your sacrifice. That is all we can ask, Bo-young said. Dae-hyun appeared again. It is time for you to go, Tae-young. Your ship is prepared. The course is set. You will exit the silent zone safely. We will ensure it. Tae-young wanted to say more. Wanted to find the right words. But there were no right words for a moment like this. So he simply bowed deeply to his former crew, then followed Dae-hyun to his ship. As he prepared for departure, Dae-hyun spoke one last time. Tell them we are still human where it counts. Tell them we made this choice willingly. Tell them the stars are safe because we make them so. And tell them we would do it all again. I will, Tae-young promised. The journey home took 14 days. Tae-young remembered entering the silent zone. He remembered finding Haven Station. He remembered meeting Dae-hyun. But the specific details were hazy, dreamlike. He knew his crew had stayed behind, but he could not quite remember why. The activation phrase echoed in his mind. Waiting. No one enters human space. Not because they are hostile, but because they are heroes. When he finally reached Kepler Prime, the council was waiting. News of his return had spread quickly. Many had assumed he was dead. His survival was a miracle. Elder Vomus was the first to greet him. The ancient being looked at Tae-young with knowing eyes. You found them, Vomus said. It was not a question. Yes, Tae-young replied. And I have something the council needs to see. The full council convened in emergency session. Representatives from every major species gathered in the great chamber. Tae-young stood before them, feeling the weight of billions of eyes upon him through various feeds and connections. I have returned from the silent zone, Tae-young began. I have met the humans. They are still there. They are still alive. And they are not what you think. He spoke the activation phrase. The seal in his mind broke. Memories flooded back. With perfect clarity. And through the technology of the council chamber, every delegate experienced what Tae-young had experienced. They saw the empty colonies. They saw the pattern. They saw the hollow ones. They saw the endless war being fought in dimensions they could barely perceive. The chamber erupted in chaos. Fear, disbelief, horror, and wonder mixed together. Some delegates called for action. Others demanded the information be suppressed. A few simply sat in stunned silence. Elder Vomas stood and raised his hand. The chamber slowly fell quiet. "We have learned a terrible truth," Vomas said. "Humanity sacrificed themselves to protect us all. They fight a war we cannot see, against enemies we cannot comprehend. And they have done this for 900 years without asking for help, without seeking glory, without even letting us know." He turned to look at the assembled delegates. "The question before us is simple. What do we do with this knowledge?" The debate lasted for days. Eventually, a decision was reached. The silent zone would remain forbidden. No ships would enter. No contact would be attempted. But the reason would change. Instead of being marked as dangerous, it would be marked as sacred, a memorial to the greatest sacrifice any species had ever made. The council established a memorial fleet. Ships would patrol the boundary, not to enforce isolation, but to honor it. Every ship would carry a plaque explaining what humanity had done. Future generations would know. They would remember. Taeyong was given command of the first memorial ship. He accepted, knowing he would spend the rest of his life at the edge of the silent zone, standing watch over those who stood, watch over everything. Years passed. Decades. Centuries. The galaxy grew and prospered, exploring in every direction except one. The silent zone remained untouched. Respected. Honored. Ships passing the boundary sometimes reported strange occurrences. Navigation that was impossibly smooth. Dangers that vanished before they appeared. The feeling of being watched over by invisible guardians. And deep within the silent zone, on Haven Station and 1,000 other places like it, transformed humans continued their vigil. They held back the darkness. They fought the war that no one else could fight. They protected the galaxy that had forgotten them. In the council chambers on Kepler Prime, a new monument was erected. It showed a human figure standing against impossible odds, arms outstretched, holding back the dark. Beneath it, carved in every language known to the galaxy, was a single phrase: "No one enters human space, not because they are hostile, but because they are heroes." Somewhere between dimensions, where reality grew thin and ancient things prowled in the darkness, Bo Young, Sung Ho, and Na Young stood with their adopted family. They were no longer what they had been. But they were exactly where they needed to be. And the galaxy, unknowing and safe, continued to turn beneath an infinite canopy of stars.